Guys, welcome back again. My name remains Chukwemeka John Wabuze. I'm a coach. Today we're looking at the other four parts of empathy, the power of empathy in business. The first one, which is empathy in customer relations, building empathetic teams, empathy role in conflict resolutions, and empathy in decision making. Let's look at the first one, empathy in customer relationship. Who is your customer? Your customer is somebody that buys your goods, your services, or your product. So how do you maintain a good relationship with your customer is so important. Understanding that the main concept of every business is to make what? Profit. And the secret behind the profit is what? The customer. If the customer doesn't buy the goods, what happens? It's gone. It's kind of complicated though, because you think about it. To get your customer right, what do you have? We have what we call the product needs to be good. You know that when you look at DevOps, it's actually a term which is being used in the IT industry. With DevOps, look at the channel in development. The main idea, the reason why the DevOps was created, this research was done, actually was because they were looking at getting the product to the customer. Getting the product to the customer on time. It's important. So you look at that part, getting the product to the customer on time and also giving value. The product needs to have value. So we look at that just to explain this point in terms of giving the customer what they need. It's not all about building an app or a software that is important. With agile, creation of agile, what happens? You start delivering software on a regular basis. It comes up, so quick. But now, when the software gets to the people, is it what they need? So it's a lot of process though, which you can see it's so important when you have to do it. When you look at it, I don't want to go deep into that though, because that's not the main discussion, but just look at, we need to understand the brain behind maintaining a good customer. Aside from the fact that we maintain them through good customer relationship, we also have to give them the right product, what they need. Going to the right product, what they need, how does that come about? We have different types of customer. We have the internal customers and we have the external customers. Looking at the internal customers, who are the internal customers? Of course, the internal customers, maybe in your business, you have an internal customer, yes. In your organizations, they are the ones that patronize in each other businesses in the organization. Then we have the external customers. They are direct buyers of your goods and services wherever they are, all over. They patronizes you. Then, right now, we look at if we have those customers and we try to understand what they need. Let's take a look. A very good example is, let's look at, we're trying to build a software and a customer comes to you and tells you, I need this app, I need this software, I need this web application. Then to you, you're trying to understand what the customer needs using your understanding. How do you actually understand what the customer needs and give them what they need? We call it empathy map. With empathy map, you understand what your customer needs and how do you identify it? You understand how do they think? What are they thinking? What is the thought of your customer? What is your customer saying? What is their feeling? What do they do? What are they doing regarding what they want you to build for them? Combining this together allows you to understand what the customer needs. So you need to think wider. Put all these four quadrants together. When your customer is describing their requirements, you are there trying to get what they actually need. So you give them what they need. You need empathy to do that. That's why it's called empathy map. So empathy is so important, even to gather requirements. Think about it. If it's so important to use empathy in gathering requirements, what of call centers? What of other customer services? Which, of course, customer relationship is very broad. It's very broad. That's why organizations put a lot of structures together. But while they are putting those structures together, that makes up the customer relationship. Empathy is important to maintain the customer. You don't want your customer to leave. Once the customer start leaving, what happens to the business? It goes down. So this is an important aspect of empathy, which is customer relation. One of the team, building a productive team, we need empathy in building a team. You want to build an empathetic team, it's so important because you need to build a trust among the team. One of the key concepts of Scrum values talks about trust. Trust is so important. Why? Because everybody wants to work in a place where they are trusted. You bring in somebody in to work in the organization, and after some time, you start making them feel they are not trusted, they can't do the thing which you make them to do. But the point is, do they have the capacity before they came in to do it? Of course they did. So what happens? What went wrong? So are you trying to blame them for that, or are you trying to blame you yourself for not managing them properly? That is where the problem is. Then, what if, while we try to deal with them, we're not protecting the emotions, the emotional safety? It's so important of those that are working in the organization. If those are not done properly, what happens? It's going to affect the team, the empathy among the team members. Everybody can see it. So, building an empathetic team is also important for a successful business. Then, also, in conflict resolution, empathy is also very important. We need empathy to resolve conflict in the organizations. One thing that is so important in every organization is conflict. We cannot run away from it. We find a lot of people that are trying to run away from conflict. What happens? The problem is still going to come back to them. So one thing is, how do we manage conflict in the organization is so important. The way we manage it. One thing that I can guarantee you guys is that once there is conflict and empathy is not involved in solving it, what happens is either the problem, when resolved, is one-sided, doesn't bring everybody in together, or one of the things, the other one, is going to affect the team and everybody goes their way, goes apart, divides them, and you start having more conflict in the organization. You find out situations where conflicts are not properly resolved. You know, sometimes I remember working in a place where there was an issue going on the ground among the team members, and the management in quote tried to suppress the problem, not letting it out. And what happens with that is that when the problem comes out, it's going to attack the job, not the people anymore. It will start affecting what you're doing. Imagine you're working with, there are problems happening on the ground, and because maybe the management is taking sides, and you as a team member realize that the management is taking sides, what do? You might not say anything, but when you see that you're not winning, and once you're in the job, you start thinking of a way out. And when you leave, what happens? You leave with your knowledge, because you want to see, most guys want to say, okay, I want to make sure that this team doesn't, since my manager is like this, I'll make sure that they lose. Who is losing? It is the management losing. The manager might not lose because he's being paid salary, but what happens to the business? It's going to affect the business on the long run. So conflict is so important. When they come in, resolve the problems. Don't take side, be empathetic. Be empathetic with yourself too. Because when something happens also, you answer a lot of questions. So my take in this is, when there is conflict, resolve it. Escalate the issue. Create a problem to resolve the problems. Sometimes it's necessary. It might look very funny sometimes, but sometimes you just need to try as much as you can to create certain problems, raise some issues. Then you're going to see everybody's going to come out from their shell. But once problems are hidden, of course, with time, organization will pay for it. Then, last but not the least, in this aspect, which has to do with decision making, we need empathy in decision making is so important. When making decisions, who is involved in decision making? Is it just you? I remember once I was working somewhere too. I remember one of the management would always say, you know what, you just create it and give it to them, and they are just going to follow instructions. Yeah, that's true. It's possible. But what happens with such decisions? It doesn't bring everybody in. Remember, everybody in the organization is as well as smart as you are. So how do you bring them in decision making? Making sure that those that are involved, that the decision affects, are involved in it. You bring them in the decision making, and this is going to allow you to have a proper decision at the end of the day. If you bring them in from different disciplines to make a proper decisions, brainstorm on it. When you brainstorm, everybody brings their idea on the table, and you decide collectively, and that becomes what? A win-win situation. But when you decide to pick what you want, or you want to do it, or you want to impose it on them, it's a win-lose, and at the end of it, they're not going to be happy. So it's so important that when making decisions, we need to use empathy. Empathy in decision making will go a long way. Even you yourself, you're going to be happy because the team is happy. Why? Because the decision that was made affected them, but they were involved in making the decision. If tomorrow something goes wrong, is anybody going to come to you and say you made the wrong thing, the wrong choice, or you made the wrong mistake, you made a mistake? No, they won't, because it's a collective idea. And if there is problem in the future, you guys come back together, brainstorm, look for solutions to the problems too. There will always be issues. There will always be time to make decisions. Collective decisions, using empathy in decision making, goes a long way in building a strong team in an organization. Thank you guys. If you like my video, please subscribe and kindly share also to those you think it can benefit.